The Seattle fog was thick, wrapping the city in a damp, gray hush that muffled the hum of ferries across Puget Sound. It was mid-October, the air sharp with salt and cedar, and I'd just gotten home from a week-long consulting gig in Portland when I found it. A keychain on the entryway table of our Capitol Hill apartment, shaped like a tiny vinyl record, inscribed with Jimi Hendrix Experience. It wasn't mine, and it sure as hell wasn't Emily Shea was a classical music snob, all Bach and violins, forever mocking my grunge playlists. I picked it up, the metal cool against my palm, and turned it over. No initials, no note, just a stranger's relic in our space. I'm not the guy who panics over small stuff. At 42, I've learned most glitches have simple fixes. I'm a management consultant. I untangle corporate messes, find the loose bolts before the machine breaks. Emily and I had been married 9 years. Our life a polished rhythm of her orchestra rehearsals, my client pitches, and quiet nights at microbreweries. But that keychain was a fault line, a detail that didn't belong. I set it down, grabbed a stout from the fridge, and stood in the living room, the fog pressing against our floor-to-ceiling windows, the city's glow a faint smear. Maybe a friend left it, I told myself. Maybe a guest. But Emily hadn't mentioned visitors, and my gut the one that saved me from bad deals and worse hire said otherwise. Emily was out when I got home, her text saying she was at a rehearsal for the Seattle Symphony's next concert. She'd been busier than usual lately, her evenings filled with sectionals or donor dinners, her phone buzzing with notifications she'd dismiss with a quick smile. I didn't think much of either job was demanding, all about impressing rich patrons and perfecting her viola parts. But now, that keychain was a crack in the system. I sat on our mid-century couch, the keychain glinting under the lamp, and noticed something else. A faint smudge of oil on the table, like from a greasy hand. Not Emily's style, she was meticulous, almost obsessive, about our minimalist decor. Emily came home around 9, her viola case slung over her shoulder, her blonde hair damp from the fog. "Hey, stranger," she said, flashing a tired smile, her coat dripping onto the hardwood. She smelled like rosin and lavender, her usual post-rehearsal scent. "Portland, treat you okay?" "Rainy, corporate, missed you," I said, keeping it light, the keychain heavy in my pocket. "Found this by the door." I held it up, casual as I could. "Yours?" Her eyes flicked to the keychain, then back to me, quick as a missed note. "Oh, that," she said, laughing softly. "Must be from a coworker. Someone probably dropped it at rehearsal. I'll ask around." She shrugged, setting her case down and moving to the kitchen to pour a glass of Pinot Gris, but I caught the way her hand lingered on her bag, like she was anchoring herself. It was a smooth answer. Emily was a pro at composure. Years of performing under pressure had made her unflappable, but the oil smudge, the keychain it, didn't add up. I smiled, let it slide, and we talked about nothing: her concert, my client's latest crisis, until she went to bed. I stayed up, the keychain in my hand, the fog outside like a curtain hiding the truth. The next morning, I started troubleshooting. Emily was at a morning quartet practice, so I had the apartment to myself. I checked the entryway table again, no other clues, but the smudge was still there, faint but greasy, like from a mechanic or a bike chain. I moved to her laptop, left open on the dining table. Her password was still our honeymoon date, a small relief. Her emails were mostly work orchestra schedules, donor invites, but one caught my eye, from D. Russo, subject, post-rehearsal plans. It was short. "Meet me at the Crocodile, 8. Her reply. "Wouldn't miss it." Dated last Tuesday when she'd said she was at a donor dinner. I Googled D. Russo. Up popped Dylan Russo, a 39-year-old sound engineer for local venues, all tattoos and flannel in his grainy headshot. His Instagram was a mix of concert shots, dive bars, and Bengoa post from the Crocodile, a legendary music club, showing a Jimi Hendrix poster in the background, caption, "Vibes on point." Emily had liked it. My stomach twisted, but I kept digging. I didn't want to believe it. Emily was intense, sure, but steadfaster, so I thought. She'd plan our anniversary dinners with military precision, leave me voicemails humming Mozart to cheer me up. But that keychain was a warning light. I checked her phone later while she was in the bath, feeling like a creep but too far in to stop. Her texts with Dylan were buried in a thread labeled work contact, but they weren't about soundboards. Your trouble, he'd written. Only the good kind, she'd replied with a heart. I set the phone down, the bathwater splashed mocking me. I needed more than text. I needed evidence she couldn't dismiss. On Tuesday, Emily said she was meeting a friend from the orchestra at the Crocodile for drinks. I didn't buy it. I borrowed a buddy's beat-up Honda less conspicuous than my black Audi and followed her. Seattle streets were slick with drizzle, the neon signs glowing through the fog, the air heavy with coffee and damp asphalt. She parked near the Crocodile, stepped out in a leather jacket I'd never seen, and went inside. I waited, parked across the street, my pulse loud against the hum of passing cars. She didn't come out for 2 hours. When she did, a guy was with Herlian, inked arms, flannel shirt, the kind of rock and roll swagger that screamed sound engineer. They didn't touch, but their body language was too loose, too familiar. I snapped a photo, zoomed in, definitely Dylan from his Instagram. I drove home, the fog swallowing my headlights, my anger sharper than the rain. Back at the apartment, I got methodical. I'm no tech wizard, but I know systems. I installed a tracking app on her phone, hidden in a fake software update he'd never notice. It showed her at the Crocodile again the next Thursday, then at a coffee shop near Pike Place the following night. I checked her bank app. 75 at the Crocodile, 200 at a vintage store she hadn't mentioned. New jacket, maybe for him. I found a receipt in her viola case, tucked in a side pocket. 2 IPAs at the Crocodile, dated last Tuesday. Bartender's name, Tessa. I went to the bar the next day, found Tessa, and played the worried husband. My wife was here, I said, showing Emily's photo. She okay? Saw her with someone. Tessa nodded, wiping down the counter. Blonde? Viola player? Yeah, she's in a lot with that sound guy Dylan. They're cozy. I tipped her, 25 and left, my jaw tight. I started asking around. Our neighbor Sam, a barista who knew Emily from coffee runs, mentioned seeing her with a tattooed dude at a record store a few weeks ago. Thought he was a friend, he said, steaming milk. I forced a grin, my chest tight. Then I called Emily's orchestra friend, Clara, under the guise of planning a surprise. Clara was cagey, but slipped that Emily had been distracted and hanging with new people. New people, right. The evidence was piling up, but it wasn't just about proof. I was unraveling, caught between fury and doubt. I kept seeing Emily smile, the one that used to light up our apartment, now aimed at him. I wasn't sleeping, the Seattle fog pressing in, the ferry's horns a low wail outside. Where had I gone wrong? Was I too corporate, too predictable? Emily loved precision, but she also craved energy her music, her late-night debates about art. Maybe Dylan was her chaos, a rhythm I couldn't play, but that didn't make it right. I got lucky one morning. Emily left her rehearsal bag open, and inside was a concert ticket stub for a local band at the Crocodile, dated 2 weeks ago, with a handwritten note, E, next one's on me, D. I pocketed it, my coffee cold, the fog still thick. This wasn't a one-off. This was a score. The moral weight hit me like a failed audit. I could confront her now, blow it all up, but what then? Divorce? Revenge? I didn't want to be the guy who burns his life down, but I couldn't be the one who ignores it, either. Emily wasn't just cheating, she was orchestrating a new symphony, one where I was the silent audience. I was done with that role. I started planning, not just to catch her, but to make her hear me, the guy she thought she could outplay. The keychain, the stub, the text, they were my evidence log, and I was ready to present the findings. Seattle's fog had thinned, but the October drizzle kept the city in a perpetual haze, the neon lights of Capitol Hill glowing like wet paint. A week had passed since I found the Jimi Hendrix keychain on our entryway table, its presence a discordant note in Emily's tightly orchestrated world. My investigation had yielded a damning score. Flirty texts with Dylan Russo, the sound engineer, hidden as work contact. GPS logs tracking her to the Crocodile, a concert ticket stub with his note, a bar receipt, and Sam's casual mention of her with a tattooed dude. Evidence wasn't enough. I needed Emily to hear the dissonance of her lies, to face the husband she'd tuned out. I planned the confrontation like a client pitch, sharp and deliberate. No shouting matches in our sleek apartment, no blindsiding her at home. I chose the Crocodile, her secret stage where she thought she could play her double life unnoticed. She'd mentioned a post-rehearsal drink there on Thursday, so I told her I'd be working late but suggested joining her for a nightcap. "Sounds fun," she said, her voice smooth over breakfast, but her fingers tapped her coffee mug, a telltale rhythm of unease. She thought she'd outplayed me. She was wrong. That morning, I finalized my dossier. The keychain, the ticket stub, printed text, GPS screenshots, the IPA receipt, and Dylan's Instagram post from the Crocodile. Caption vibes on point. I added a photo of them outside the bar, their laughter frozen in my camera roll. I kept the keychain in my pocket. Its weight a reminder of my resolve. Emily was all about precision, and I'd match her note for note. This wasn't just about catching her. It was about rewriting the melody she tried to erase. The day slogged on, the Seattle drizzle soaking my jacket, the ferry's horns a low wail across Puget Sound. I kept replaying our marriage, searching for the missed beat. Was it when I got too comfortable, my consulting gigs eating our weekends, or when her symphony career took center stage, her viola consuming her soul? Emily lived for order her sheet music, her minimalist decor, but she also craved a pulse, a spark of chaos in her rigid world. Dylan, with his tattoos and dive bar swagger, was probably her offbeat, a rhythm I couldn't match. That didn't excuse her. It just made me question where I'd lost the tempo. I dug deeper into Dylan, needing to know the guy who'd hijacked my score. His LinkedIn was bare, freelance sound engineer, gigs at the Crocodile and Numos, no education listed. His Twitter was louder posts about local bands, craft beer, and a photo from the Crocodile's green room, arm around a woman who wasn't Emily, captioned "Good Company." Dated a month ago. So he was a player, not a poet. That should have softened the blow, but it didn't. Emily wasn't chasing love, she was chasing a thrill, and I was the steady note she drowned out. I called her orchestra friend Clara again, playing the doting husband, planning a surprise. Clara was chatty this time, maybe because she'd had a glass of wine. "Emily's been weird," she said. "Always at that bar with some music guy. Dylan, I think. She says it's networking, but..." She trailed off, and I didn't push. Networking. Right. Another bar in my evidence track. By afternoon, I was restless, pacing our apartment, the radiator's hum a faint echo of my pulse. The moral dilemma was a bad pitch deck in my head. Confronting her would feel like closing a deal, but what came after? Divorce was the obvious out, but did I want to scrap 9 years over a fling? Or was this about ego, proving I wasn't the guy she could outmaneuver? I could sabotage her, leak the text to her conductor, derail her symphony career. But that felt like a cheap tactic, and I wasn't that desperate. Or was I? The drizzle outside blurred everything, like the truth was slipping through the cracks. I got to the Crocodile early, the bar's neon sign buzzing red against the fog. Inside, it was pure Seattle. Dim lights, exposed brick, the smell of spilled beer and old vinyl. A local band was setting up, their sound check a low thrum, the crowd a mix of hipsters and aging grunge fans. I wore a dark jacket, blending in but feeling like an outsider, my dossier tucked in a slim leather case. I grabbed a corner booth, private but with a clear view of the entrance, and ordered a whiskey neat. The keychain sat heavy in my pocket, a prop for the showdown. Emily arrived at 8:20, a vision in that new leather jacket, her blonde hair loose, a pint glass in hand. She scanned the room, her posture relaxed but her eyes sharp, a performer before the curtain. She spotted me, waved, and sauntered over, all ease and charm. "This place is alive," she said, sliding into the booth, her lavender scent cutting through the bar's haze. "Glad you made it, Nate." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, my voice calm. "Found something at home." I slid the keychain across the table, the HENDRIX logo glinting under the bar's lights. Her smile flickered just for a beat, her eyes locking on it. "What's that?" she said, her voice tight, still playing the symphony star. Nate, you kept that? It's just some coworkers. You're overthinking it. Am I? I set the ticket stub down, Dylan's note clear. Then there's this. I opened the case, spreading the text, GPS logs, receipt, and his Instagram post like a bad set list. Her face didn't move, but her hand tightened on her glass, the IPA sloshing. Nate, this is insane, she hissed, her eyes darting to the bar to check for onlookers. You're spying on me? That's pathetic. Pathetic? I leaned in, my voice low, sharp as a snare. Pathetic's lying about donor dinners while you're sneaking off with Dylan Russo, the crocodile, every Tuesday. I've got your texts, your GPS, even Tessa the bartender, knows you're cozy. Want to call it networking again? Her jaw clenched, and for a moment, I thought she'd bolt. But she stayed, her eyes blazing like a musician facing a missed cue. You're blowing this up, she said. Dylan's a friend. A vibe. You're too busy with your suits to get my world. A vibe? I laughed, cold and cutting. You're texting him hearts, buying vintage jackets, meeting him in secret. What is it, Emily? His tattoos? His dive bar charm? Or just the thrill of tuning me out? She flinched, but she didn't break. You don't understand, she said. You're so predictable. Dylan's alive. He gets my energy. This, she gestured at the papers, is nothing. It's not what you think. Nothing? I tapped the stub. You're in deep, and I've got the playlist. Keep playing, Emily. It's almost a performance. A bartender glanced our way, sensing the static, but I waved him off. Emily sipped her IPA, her eyes locked on mine, calculating. What do you want? She said finally. A divorce? To ruin me? Go ahead, Nate. You're not the saint you think you are. I want the truth, I said. No symphony spin, no charm. You owe me that. She leaned back, crossing her arms. Fine. Yes, I've been with him. It's not love, it's a spark. You wouldn't get it. A spark. The word hit like a bad chord, but I didn't flinch. I'd called her bluff, forced the truth, but it didn't feel like a closed deal. It felt like a song stuck on repeat, unresolved. We sat there, the band's soundcheck swelling, the bar's lights casting shadows on her face. I could have walked away, left her with the dossier and the tab, but part of me needed more, not an apology, but a why. Was it really a spark like she said, or was she chasing a rhythm I'd failed to play? I thought about our early days, her dragging me to jazz clubs, her laugh when I botched a dance move. Where had that Emily gone? You could have told me, I said, quieter now, if you needed a spark. You didn't have to rewrite our score. She looked away, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. You wouldn't have heard me, she said. You're always so composed. It stung because there was a note of truth there. I'd been distracted, my life a series of calculated moves, but that didn't justify her. Nothing did. I closed the case, left the keychain on the table. Keep your spark, I said, but don't expect me to conduct it. I stood and walked out, the bar's neon fading behind me, the Seattle night cool and sharp. The city hummed, daring me to choose. Divorce was the cleanest break. But did I want to end the song entirely? I could derail her, send the text to her orchestra board, expose her to Dylan's crowd, or I could walk away, recompose, build a life that didn't falter on her lies. The ticket stub was still in my pocket, a weight I wasn't ready to drop. I kept walking, the fog lifting, and felt the first stir of a new rhythm, not resolution, but possibility.